All righty. Let's get started. Welcome to Faith and Future Reinvention podcast. I am Dr. Kay Hadley, your faith and future reinvention architect here. And all that means is that I'm just a servant leader and I'm here to share with you today. And hopefully you can share with me as well. We're going to get started. All right. So let's just talk about over the past 2 episodes. This is our 3rd, and it's just exciting that we're moving forward in faith, taking the next step and taking the next step. But over the past 2 episodes, we have been doing deep work, right? Together in episode 1, if you remember or recall, we confronted the loudest critic in the room, the voice that's in our mind, right? That tells us that we're late, we're unqualified, or we're just simply behind. And in episode 2, we talked about we sat in the in between. All right. And what we mean by in between is that we talked about what happens when fear quiets, right? Your mind quiets down, but the future still feels unclear. But today, I'm so glad to share with you in episode 3, we're going to bring this powerful truth right together. Episode 1 and 2 really brings us the powerful truth that you belong in the room. Now, I want you to say that along with me, and you can personalize it. I belong in the room. All right. Not someday, not when you feel ready, and not when everything is perfect. Got it? But now, right now, you belong in the room. There's a moment, I believe, that many women experience, but also men, but we rarely name it, right? We don't really name it. Um, we might be invited into a space, a conversation, a table, a calling, a new level, a new season. And suddenly the old doubts begin to whisper. Anybody been there? And some of those thoughts that are being whispered or your subconscious is echoing back to you is that, do I really belong here? Am I qualified enough? What if they see through me? Focus. All right. This is the moment we need to flag it and focus on what's ahead. Focus on the next faithful step, not focusing on our past, right? Because that's what happened. We slip and we start thinking about the past and things that have happened. Those things we take under considerations, meaning somebody else's thoughts about us and their influences. And maybe we're considering the failures we have experienced or the losses, or maybe it was trauma. Maybe it was some type of heartbreak or disappointments, or just simply feeling unworthy. And then I think what's most detrimental is comparing yourself to someone else, right? And so we begin to say, do I really belong here? Am I qualified enough? What if they see through me, right? What we need to do right now, take a deep breath, inhale and exhale. Now I want you to release every stronghold, every one of them. There, this is the point of the podcast that I want to share with you that 1 and 2, right? We were just warming up. We were doing some much needed um, personalization, really looking into where our mind is. What are those things that flag? What are those nudges and so forth that we talked about in the last 2 podcasts? But this is where 1 and 2 meets real life. Because after we quiet the critic, all right, just to sum it up, and then after we trust God with the next step, right? What's next? You still have to do what? You actually have to do, there's an action. You have to walk in the room. Okay, that's the action. You still have to walk in the room. All right. And I know that is deep, right? When you think about it, nobody else can do it for you. You have to take that next step yourself. All right. So let's connect the dots, shall we? Again, in episode 1, it taught us, right, to remember the loudest critic that's usually inside, right? It's not the critics that are outside, although we all have them, right? We're constantly being judged by family and friends and coworkers and so forth. We're going to always have that. But the loudest critic is the one that's inside. Pastor Duran Gray, I always quote him when I say this: the scene of the crime is your what? Is your mind. It's a serious thing. And in episode 2, that reminded us that clarity follows what? Obedience. Clarity follows obedience, not perfection. And so in episode 3 here, we together, that's what I want to do. Me and you together, I want us to declare, all right, if God positioned you in the room, all right, I'm gonna say that again. If God positioned you in the room, you don't need to apologize for being there. You don't need to feel guilty for being there. Got it? Belonging is not earned by perfection. It's not. It's affirmed by what? Our purpose. So let me take this a step further. Many women believe, all right, and men as well, that they must outgrow their mess, that's MESS, before they can belong to something. What do I mean by that? Your mess does not disqualify your message. Your journey qualifies your voice. And what I mean by mess, I just want to back up just a little bit about that. It's really just our life experience, what we've been through and so forth. And even those things internally that we are experienced, that we self-doubt ourselves and we don't think we deserve happiness or the best, or, we feel we have to be content to the way things are right now in our lives. All of that baggage, right? It's actually what you survived, what you learned, and what you navigated. I'm gonna say that one more time because if you're writing notes, you need to jot this down in your journal. So your mess is what you survived, what you learned, and what you navigated. And even though we tend to call it baggage, it's not baggage. It's credibility. All right. Because everything that have experienced, I should say, our experiences have prepared us for the now. Wow, that is revelational. Everything that you've gone through, the good, the bad, and the ugly have prepared you for the now, have given you the authorization, the validation to walk in the room. You belong in the room. All right. There is a bigger message, is what I'm saying, than the mess. All right. And the room needs your version of it, not the person that you're comparing yourself to, not those that are around you, but the room needs who? It needs you. It needs your version of it. All right. I want to read something to you because when I was, really doing some studying behind this, and a lot of this resonate with me. So personally, so just to let you know, so I know also well, all right, that a lot of this, when we refer to our mess, it really has a lot to do with what is called an imposter syndrome. All right. And I want to read something about it. Give me one second. Let me get my little sheet here. I pulled it off of ChatGPT, by the way, because I wanted to get more of a in plain language, really, where we can understand it and see if as I'm reading this, if it resonate with you. All right. So the imposter syndrome is a psychological pattern where when you doubt, right, your accomplishment, and you have a persistent internal fear of being exposed as a fraud. That is powerful within itself. And despite the evidence of your competence, and I'm going to go a little bit further, and despite that God has validated, and despite God has confirmed right? That you are competent and that you have everything that you need to go into the next season to take the next step. We often attribute our success to maybe luck or an external factor. You know, maybe we knew somebody that got us in, right? It's who we know. And we hear that out in the world. It's who you know, who you connect with, the power moves, and so forth. But the bottom line is it all begins with you, and where it starts here in the mind, right? So people are experiencing it, right? They feel they aren't as smart. And I can raise my hand at times, even though I got all this education, all the way up to a doctorate, I sometimes feel that way, right? Or maybe I feel as though I'm not as capable as others. And certainly there are others who are good. They are skilled. That's their craft. That's their gift. That's who they are. But still, the room needs who? Then the room needs you. The room needs your version. All right. It's powerful. I was so excited when I was saying this. Let me finish this out. You may even feel overworked or you avoid challenges to prevent being found out. Like some things you just try to just stay in the background, right? You don't want to be in the forefront, you know, in fear somebody might catch something and say, oh, well, maybe, she's not as bright as I thought she was, or as smart as I thought she was, or yeah, she has a flaw. She's not as perfect as she appears to be, because we live in a culture where we're constantly being what judged constantly, right? And then we let that influence seep into our mind, right? Instead of counteracting that negativity with something that's positive, with something that we know for sure, especially if you're putting the time in, right? And I always say those things that you're faithful with, that nobody sees you doing, all that studying, preparation, everything that you're doing in the background, more than qualifies you for you still question being in the room. All right. So that is the imposter syndrome. All right. I'm getting so excited here. So here's some key characteristics. I just want to run this through you. Self doubt, which is the constant questioning of your skills and talents. It's the fear of exposure. You're worried about others, how they will discover you're not as competent as you seem. Also, attributing success externally, believing success comes from luck. Not so, because promotion comes from where? Promotion comes from God. I gotta say that. Put that in your journal. I'm telling you. I'm so excited. I hope that you're excited, right? It doesn't promotion does not, or success come from luck or timing, right? And then another key characteristic of imposter syndrome is this discounting praise, dismissing compliments or positive feedback. And I am so guilty of that. If somebody says, Kay, you did a great job. And it will take a minute for my brain to really say, okay, did you just hear that somebody's trying to give you a compliment? Respond. And sometimes I act like I don't hear it, because why? I'm discounting the praise, because somewhere in my mind, I don't think that I'm worthy of it, right? I don't think that I doubt, you know, my own skills and ability. All right. So I just wanted to read that to you real quick. I was just so excited. Let me see if I missed anything else. I don't think I have. And it's okay to pause on that. But if anything resonate with you, you can just put it in the chat. But that imposter syndrome is a real thing. All right. And some of our common behaviors, if you want to know if you are experiencing imposter syndrome as well, as over preparation, overworking. You definitely work hard to avoid perceiving failure, guilty, procrastination. You might delay tasks when succeeding due to last minute scrambling, which enforces the luck, right? Of belief. You avoid those challenges, holding back from new opportunities to prevent potential exposure. And what it affects, it's common, right? This effect really is common more than we think it is, right? It can affect anyone, regardless of your gender, your age, or your profession, you know, what level of society, how famous you are. It can affect anybody, which is it really turns on a light bulb in your mind to know that anybody can experience it. CEOs, so forth, stars, anybody you can think of that's out there that we feel really is just way up here, in our mind, but in their mind, they're experiencing imposter syndrome. So I really want to bring that home so that you really have a clear understanding of that. And then just write that in your journal, imposter syndrome, and do your own research around it and see if any of the symptoms resonate with you, right? And you want to start, put a strategic plan in place and be prepared. And we're going to get into that in a moment, so that when it's time for you to walk in the room, you're going to walk in the room. All right. All right. So, imposter syndrome is it proof that we don't belong? So, even if you're experiencing that, it's not proof that we don't belong. It's often evidence, really, that you're stretching into a new territory. Okay, so it really could be a sign that you are stretching into a new territory when you start going through all that turmoil. The moment you get some type of clarity or clear vision, that's the moment when your mind, everything your experience that's been recorded in that subconscious will begin to say, "Okay, we don't act like that. Oh no, we're not prepared for that. Oh, that's not for you. Oh, that's for someone else." Right? But really, it's the moment if I say yes and I move forward regardless of what my mind is saying at that moment, I'm going to be stretched, right? It's going to be uncomfortable. I'm stretching into a new territory, right? And every time we're stretched and we get into a new territory, it's an opportunity for what? Growth, right? Growth always feel unfamiliar at first. It does. But you don't need to know everything to belong in the room. You just need to be what? Present, willing, and authentic. Right? Say that with me. Present, willing, and authentic. You were never meant to enter rooms pretending, but you were meant to enter those rooms prepared by your what? Your process. We all go through processes, right? Through every season, we're going through a process. We're being molded and shaped. If we're allowing ourselves to be vulnerable and to grow through our experiences and find those lessons learned through everything, the good, bad, and the ugly, then we should be really being purged through the fire and getting stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger to the point where we say yes, right? We say yes so that when the door opens, we're ready. We're courageous and we are intentional. All right. So listen up. If you're listening and hesitating to speak up, to show up, to apply, some jobs that are out there we probably wouldn't even think about applying for. Maybe it's your opportunity to share, to lead, or to begin again. Let me remind you, you didn't come this far by accident. You belong. You belong where? You belong in that conversation, that opportunity, that calling, that next chapter. All right. The room isn't reserved for the fearless, it's filled by the faithful. Write that in your journal. All right. The room isn't reserved for the fearless. It's filled by the faithful because when we ask God what's next, we're taking the next faithful step, right? Because we don't know all the details. We just have to be faithful. I don't know about you. I'm about to blow up here. So take a moment with me, right? Pause. I like to do these self reflections applications so that really we can really, if we think it through in our mind and we say it out loud, right? Your mind, your subconscious is recording it, right? And I want you to ask yourself three questions. What have I been standing outside of and waiting for permission? Is there something specifically that you've been waiting for permission from someone, for somebody to tap you and say, "Hey, yeah, you should do this." right? Number 2, where have I allowed past mistakes to silence my voice? Now that's a good one. Where have I allowed past mistakes to silence my voice? Things that happened to me, pain, grief, whatever it was. Maybe we were betrayed. Betrayal is a big thing, or rejection, or whatever it was to make you feel as though you should never even speak again. Don't even speak. Don't even think higher. You just stay right where you are and you'll be just fine, right? I want you to write that in your journal. Okay. Begin working on this because if you don't do the work, I'm telling you, nobody else can do it for you. This is really to help all of us to prepare forward because it's faith, future, reinvention, right? And if I go biblical on you, right? In Romans, it talks about be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. I think it's Romans chapter 12, verses 1 and 2. It talks about be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. And if you don't start switching out those old thoughts for new thoughts and retraining your mind, you will stay just where you're at. Okay. No change will reflect no change in your life. All right. Question number 3. What would change if you walked in believing that I belong? All right. So, what would change if I walked in believing that I belong? All right. Got it. So, you don't need confidence to enter the room. All right. Belonging comes first. You got to know that you belong. All right. Everything that you experience to now, even those things, I think about those experiences where I really didn't know, right? There were some things I just didn't know. I didn't know what I didn't know. And there was transparency to it. So maybe somebody else picked it up and it made me feel bad because of their response or how they made me feel. So then, of course, that made me quiet my voice and just kind of shrug away as though, you know, I wasn't good enough. Right. So if you've been there and you can resonate with that, you know what I'm talking about. But it really takes knowing that you belong. Maybe I didn't know before, but those lessons learned, I learned from those experiences. And what I didn't know then, I know now. And the same with you, with what you didn't know, what you should have known, what you didn't know, you know now if you learned from that experience. Right. So don't put yourself down, really just give yourself some slack and some grace, knowing that you are learning through the process. All right. And nobody can ever come back to you now and say, oh, you don't know, because you do know, because you had an experience and you lived through it. All right. I'm glad I got a chance to share that with you. Reinvention it isn't just internal. Reinvention is about visibility, being visible, right? The manifestation of the change, all right? And at some point, you stop preparing quietly, right? And you start standing confidently. Let me make that clear. At some point, you stop preparing quietly and you start standing confidently, meaning that eternal work that we're doing, like I said, those things that we're doing to upskill, to prepare. You're in the season of preparation, those things that people don't see. They will begin to see some type of manifestation on you. It will become visible either in your posture, in the way that you speak. When you enter the room, people look. You're not actually saying anything, but there's a recognition that there's something about you that's superior. And when I say superior, it's contagious to the point where there's joy, the expression of joy on your face, and that you're here to infect and impact others' lives. It's not something that self gain. They know that you're not only there for yourself walking through the room, but you're there to impact other lives as well. It becomes visible to others that, oh my God, I don't even see fear on Kay anymore. And matter of fact, I think Kay has improved from podcast 1, 2, and 3. I can begin to see it becomes visible what I'm doing. in the background, in the quietness, is beginning to be visible to those who are listening to this podcast. All right. I got to say an amen in it. Amen. Amen. And so be it. All right. And it's not because I'm perfect, but because I'm positioned. And I said yes, right, to the positioning. So you see, there's a bigger message than the mess. Your story still speaks and your presence, it matters because what the room needs, whose version? The room needs your version. The room needs you. So, yes, you belong in the room. And you need to say that out loud so that your mind, your subconscious mind can record that. I belong in the room. All right. I'm so glad I got to share this podcast with you today. There was so much that, in my studying that I wanted to cover, but I'm sure I'll have time, um, God willing, in other podcasts to kind of roll out additional nuggets of wisdom as I learned them. I'm going to share it with you, and vice versa. If you have anything you want to share with me, feel free to drop it in the chat. Or if you would like to appear on my podcast, I would love to have you. And we can take it a little deeper and you can talk about your experience. Why? Because your experience, your transparency with your experience can help someone else. All right. So, thank you for that. I see that comment in the chat. All right. So now we're at the point of questions. All right. And I try to do 2 to 3 questions. I do have a few questions that's already prepared. But if you have a question in the chat, feel free to jot that in there. In the meanwhile, I'll go with question one, which is okay, Kay. Um, I confirm and I validate as well. I affirm, put it that way, that I belong in the room. But I do have a question. There's my mind, my subconscious is flagging the following question. What if I feel like everyone else in the room is more qualified than I am? Totally, totally human, right? To really feel that way, right? That feeling is really more common than we can all think, right? But let me gently reframe this for you. The room isn't filled with people who know everything. It's not. I mean, in our mind, we think that everybody know they look the part, but really, they may be experiencing the same thing that you're experiencing internally. Okay. The room isn't filled with people who know everything. It's filled with people who are still learning, just like you. All right. So please write that down in your journal. Everybody in the room is learning. Nobody has walks into a room or walks into a new job or walks into a new season, whatever it is, or your purpose and calling, knowing everything. We learn through the process. All right. That's why there's seasons. So belonging it isn't about really comparing ourselves to others in the room. It's not at all. It's about contribution, right? What can you contribute? And again, don't discount yourself because all of your experiences, the good, bad, and the ugly, has prepared you for the now. All right. You were not invited in the room to compete. That's another thing. You were invited to add what only you can bring, right? It's unique to you. Again, the room needs what? Your version. Remember that. Qualification isn't always about credentials. Sometimes it's about lived experiences, perspectives, and maybe discernment. If you were invited, hear me, or if you have the opportunity presented to you to enter a room, you belong. That simple. All right. Let me go to question two. How do I stop my past mistakes from making me feel like I don't deserve to be in the room? Mm, yes. This is such an important question because many women, as well as men, I will say that, believe that they must erase their past before they can stand confidently in the present. But here's the truth, your past doesn't disqualify you, it informs you. Okay. It's all about perspective. When that negative flags into your subconscious mind, and it says, you're disqualified. You just kindly just say it out loud. My past informs me, and what you walk through gives you insight. You now have insight. Like I said, those lessons learned, you should walk away with insight, empathy, wisdom that others may not have. There is a bigger message than the mess. Ooh, I love that. When you stop hiding what shaped you and you allow it to strengthen your voice, you're not in the room despite your journey. You're there because of your journey. Oh my God, that's so good. That's so good. All right. And for our last question, take a moment because I'm starting to smack. Anytime I'm smacking, I need to take a drink. All right. Third question is, what if I belong in the room, but I'm afraid to speak up once I'm there? And that is a really good question right there. I would say that because if you have trouble with anxiety and your heart starts racing, you start sweating, and even when you try to speak, it's like you're stuttering or there's a skip or a tremor in your voice, like a frog is in there, and you're trying to get the words out, and you're really going through an anxiety attack. Remember the strategy that I shared with you, that Mel um, shared with us about the 5-second rule. I'm trying to get to that. That if you feel that anxiety, try to count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then have some type of action, right? And even if that's just taking a breath, take a deep breath before you speak. Maybe have some notes, as a guide on what you want to speak on, can help deeply. And if you feel that still doesn't do it and you need to go a little bit deeper to tackle that, then you do what you need to do, right? To get that needed support to help you through those anxiety attacks. But I that happened to me. I was in a room and I was afraid to speak up. um, but I am one when I get into that type of situation, that the Lord helps me to just stand on my feet and say what I need to say. I don't try to make it lengthy. I say what I have to say and I stop and pause and see if there's any questions. Try that as an exercise and see if that works, or practice speaking at home, right? You can do all your preparation behind doors, right? Certain things that you want to be able, if you are in a room and you're invited in a room to speak, to talk, to give conversation, you're on a panel or you're doing a podcast like me, you try to do some preparation ahead of time and you just grow through every experience. All right. Belonging doesn't require you to be the loudest voice in the room. It requires presence, not performance. So, if that helps any, it's about you being present. It's not about a performance. You don't have to speak immediately to the matter. Like I said, you can pause, take a deep breath. Maybe you can ask a question instead of having to be able to respond to something. Ask a question so that you can get further insight and clarity. Sometimes your power is in listening first. There you go, understanding the space, being able to read the room, read everybody that's in the room. Now that takes some time, right? But it's wisdom to know who's in the room and how to read the room. Confidence grows through action, not perfection. So start where you are. I would just say that even one sentence can change how you see yourself. Like I said, if it's one sentence, if it's one question, if it's pausing before you say anything, because people tend to think that they just got to just, perform and say X, Y, and D. And sometimes you say more with less. Ooh, that's a nugget. Sometimes you can say more with less. All right. You may say, Kay, I feel a little bit scared about going in the room. Hey, been there, done that. And I probably will continuously probably go through that initially. Like I might feel like I'm a little afraid to go into the room, but guess what? I'm going into the room because if God opened the door for me, I know there's some doors that He closed for protection. He's protecting me, redirection when He closed those doors. And He's saying, Okay. In the meantime, you should be ramping up, preparing, because when I open the door, I'm the one, right? Promotion comes from me. And I just want you to be ready. I want you to say yes, and I want you to walk through the door. So even if I'm a little fearful, guess what? I'm going to walk through the door and I'm going to try to prepare as much as possible. And what I don't know, I know that I'm going to be keen to read the room and just see with those areas where maybe I might have a gap, or maybe I just need to learn more about. Maybe I need to do some research about. This is what we need to be doing. But by all means, don't miss your opportunity to walk into the room. Why? Because you belong there, my friend, not because you have figured it all out, but because your journey prepared you to be there. So don't let the mess convince you that your message has no place. The room needs your voice and your wisdom and your becoming. So walk in humility, stand in your truth. And remember, if you were invited, you belong. Until next time, my friends, thank you again for joining today. I want you to breathe deep, quiet the noise, and keep becoming. All right. And join us for our next podcast, which will be on February 22nd at 7 p.m. about manifestation. You don't want to miss it. Make sure you invite your friends and your family. All right. And we're going to talk about how we can manifest things into our lives. All right. So thank you again for giving me the opportunity to share with you today. And please share the podcast with as many people as possible. Bye now.